seeing my record button. Hold on a second. Okay, I got it now. All right.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajak Acharya Asotra Satoshi Srimad His Divine Grace Shri A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantikoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jayadvaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopika Minath Shanmakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dharma Ki Jai Shri Navadip Dharma Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dharma Ki Jai Shri Ayodhya Dharma Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dharma Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Yamuna Devi Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Gaura Premanande Haribo. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
Jai. Thank you so much, Gurudas Prabhu, and welcome everyone to Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami and friends. Tonight, I think, will be friends, and we are reading in third canto, chapter 25, starting with text number 3 tonight, which is Wednesday, October 11th, 2023. Very much looking forward to hearing your reading and comments. And again, thank you for being here. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I would like to invite Gurudas Prabhu to read the first verse tonight, which is text 3, chapter 25 in canto 3.
You're way too kind. Thank you very much. I'm getting there. I'll let you know in 1 second.
Okay. My dear husband, are you going to post the text in the chat?
Working on it.
Oh, okay. 325.3.
325.3, yes.
Okay. Krishna. Yad vidhate bhagavan svachanandatmamayaya tanime shradanasya kirtan yani anukirtaya. Translation by Srila Prabhupada and purport by Prabhupada. Therefore, please precisely describe all the activities and pastimes of the personality of Godhead, who is full of self-desire and who assumes all these activities by his internal potency. Purport. The word anukirtaya is very significant. Anukirtaya means to follow the description, not to create a concocted mental description, but to follow. Shanaka Rishi requested Sutta Goswami to describe what he had actually heard from his spiritual master Shukadev Goswami about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord manifested by his internal energy. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has no material body, but he can assume any kind of body by his supreme will. That is made possible by his internal energy. So we know about the Lord's 3 energies. This verse is specifically about his internal potency. We know that the spiritual world manifests from his internal potency, as does Srimati Radharani, as does all of his plenary portions, and also as does the living entities. The living entities are called marginal, which means they can be influenced by the internal or the external. But here, Anukirtaya is used in relation to the spiritual potency. So we can't even begin to understand the spiritual potency unless we approach the authority in parampara, the spiritual master. Shanaka, reading from the purport, Shanaka Rishi requested Sutta Goswami to describe what he'd actually heard from his spiritual master. This is a very important and heavy guideline. We're not meant to hear anything speculative. That we're burdened in a way. Even the people of India are burdened by having so many versions of the Lord's activities, for example. And there's a portion of individuals who are unfortunately deluded or confused by so many different versions of who was Krishna, what's the significance of the battle of Kurukshetra, or the Mahabharata, or the Yadu dynasty. Unfortunately, due to the three modes of material nature and their own free will has a part in it, they get caught up in the concocted ideas, and their great misfortune is that they do not take to the pure devotional service of the Lord because they're not hearing properly. So our especially we are especially pointed towards hearing properly in this verse by citing Sutta Goswami and Sukadev Goswami, who of course both recited the Bhagavatam for our benefit. We are hearing, by reading the Bhagavatam, we are hearing the version of Sutta Goswami. That's what I had to say.
Thank you. My husband has written a comment in the chat box. I could read it, or if Surmi Kunj Mataji would like to read it. I'm sorry, were you about to say something, Prabhu?
No, I was encouraging you to read it, or whoever to read it.
I'll read it. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on text 3. The Lord has a body, I don't know what those parentheses mean, which is independent, not like the jiva, whose body is dependent on karma. Or he is the Lord whose bodily appearance takes place by his own will independently. He performs actions by his yoga maya, not by his external energy, since it is said, Janma karma cha me divyam, my birth and activities are spiritual. Gita 4:9. Kirtanyani means worthy of being glorified. Yad, whatever action, indicating a great number, is correlated with tani, plural form. It's a bit technical for me.
Right. My take on what your husband posted is that the Lord is spiritual, and that is complete, all spiritual, and this is emphasizing that. There's no aspect of him, even though he created, we know he created the external material energy, but he's not affected by it or part of it. Anything having to do with Krishna, as we read again and again in Prabhupada's purports, is all spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's another message from Akendra Prabhu. Srila Prabhupada says here, Anukirtaya means to follow the description, not to create a concocted mental description, but to follow, unquote. Srila Prabhupada was invited to a Bhagavad Gita festival once, but most of the speakers there, including the festival organizers, were pushing their own philosophies without touching on the purport of Bhagavad Gita. That sounds a lot, Prabhu, Kendra Prabhu, like the statements Prabhupada makes in his introduction to Bhagavad Gita as it is, how there are so many versions of the Gita, but everybody's pushing his own program And so as a result, even though there are so many versions of the Gita, no one has presented a version that will make devotees or get people interested in Krishna consciousness, because they all have their own motivated presentations of the Gita. At least that's what it reminds me of. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead.
I was having a conversation with my husband the other day. I don't remember the context, but it seems like, everyone's seeking after knowledge, and without a proper system of parampara, without proper guidance, the tendency is that you read what they call wisdom books. The Bible is a wisdom book, the Bhagavad Gita is a wisdom book, the Quran is a wisdom book, the Tibetan Book of the Dead is a wisdom book. So people are seeking knowledge, but they're not seeking guidance. And when they read these books, they whatever is in them that resonates with what they read in the book, they will latch on to that. They will become enthusiastic about that. And they may just either not even notice or disregard the other parts that don't resonate with them. And then they will kind of retrofit the philosophy that they're reading to correspond to their worldview, and further develop their own theories about whatever, knowledge, the world, life in general. And so it's not, I think that's why one reason why Prabhupada's purports are so important, because it's not just some kind of, abstract or cryptic words of Krishna, which are not always, if you're not coming from the culture and you're not in the mode of goodness, at least, you can misconstrue many things, that Krishna says. But when you have the proper guidance, then not only, are you not in danger, or not so much in danger of misconstruing what Krishna says, but you're not going to be allowed to impose your idea on what Krishna is saying, which seems like what a lot of people, as you mentioned, are doing. They want to, impose their own theories of life or knowledge or self-realization or whatever onto these words. Why? Because the words are potent, but they don't have access to the full potency because they're not in parampara. They're not accepting guidance from a bona fide spiritual master. And, it's just a self, they're reflecting themselves. They're just using it to aggrandize themselves or push forward their own ideas. Gurudas Prabhu says, it sounds like you are saying that you skip the parts of those books where you surrender. Yes. The surrender to Krishna is the part that's missing from all the other versions. True.
Yeah, so all of those books of knowledge minus Krishna is jnana.
Mhm.
You named all the books that were on the shelf of the library that I used to frequent before I became a devotee, the Tibetan Book of the Dead and whatnot. Everything was there, and people were checking them out and putting them back, and checking them out and putting them back. This was in a library, in a private collection, and there were different Gitas there too.
Now, Prabhupada with his purports Srila Prabhupada made it so that there was no chance of escaping that conclusion. You can't squeeze past it, and pretend it doesn't apply to you.
That's the mercy of the great Acharya. He wants to get us involved in it, not just, licking the surface of the jar of honey, but actually tasting the honey inside. And that, as the Acharya knows, is by actually doing devotional service, not just accumulating knowledge. should I read what Akendra wrote? Akendra says, regarding wisdom books, quote unquote, it's one thing to think you, quote, learned something about Krishna consciousness after somehow having some exposure to the philosophy. But as TPD, that means you, Tulsi Priya Dasi, said, if you're not in parampara, if you're not following, you're not faithful, your actions will show how much you've actually learned.
He says further, Srila Prabhupada would time and again point to his Western disciples whose lives had completely transformed as proof of the power of parampara.
Happy hippies to happies.
If there are no further comments, I invited Bhakti Dana Mataji to read the next verse if she's available and willing.
Text 4. Sutta Uvacha Dvapayana Sakas Evam Matraya Bhagavam Tatta Idam Viduram Prita Anvikshikyam Prachodita. Translation. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the most powerful sage Maitreya was a friend of Vyasadeva. Being encouraged and pleased by Vidura's inquiry about transcendental knowledge, Maitreya spoke as follows. Purport. Questions and answers are very satisfactorily dealt with when the inquirer is bona fide and the speaker is also authorized. Here Maitreya is considered a powerful sage, and therefore he is also described as Bhagavan. This word can be used not only for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but for anyone who is almost as powerful as the Supreme Lord. Maitreya is addressed as Bhagavan because he was spiritually far advanced. He was a personal friend of Vaipayana Vasudeva, a literary incarnation of the Lord. Maitreya was very pleased with the inquiries of Vidura because they were the inquiries of a bona fide advanced devotee. Thus Maitreya was encouraged to answer. When there are discourses on transcendental topics between devotees of equal mentality, the questions and answers are very fruitful and encouraging. I always heard that I always got confused by that. I'm fairly new here to Krishna consciousness, and I remember always hearing I knew Bhagavan, referred to, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but then I heard it also used in these other ways, and so this was great to hear the actual understanding of why that was. So this was good to read this one.
Saraswati Mataji has her hand raised.
Pranams to everyone. I'm also going to just elaborate on what was just said about this addressing someone as Bhagwan. We find that certain sections of the public, they're either averse to someone being called Bhagwan because in their minds they've concocted this definition of what Bhagwan is. Either they have to display divinity or some miracles in order for them to think that that title should be given. And then there are other people who have less of a bar to reach, and anyone really can be Bhagwan by performing some small magical feats, ash to bit of gold that might have been hidden up the sleeve. They could be addressed as Bhagwan. So we've got this wide spectrum, and then there are other people who don't want anyone at all to be addressed as Bhagwan, because then in their mind they're thinking, no, only the Vishnu Tattvas should be addressed as Bhagwan. And otherwise you've got, so many Bhagwans running around, and then that kind of clashes with another section of a community who thinks there should only be one God. And why is it that, you've got a whole bunch of gods running around? So there's a lot of confusion out there for devotees to try and rifle through and straighten people. But I was just reading in Brihad Bhagavatam, page 94. It said that even though living within the material world in bodies composed of the 5 elements, persons expert in relishing devotional service to the Lord are always worshipable. And then they say, anywhere such devotees are found is Vaikuntha Lok. Thus, even while living in material bodies, they assume the transcendental nature of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, Satchidanand, like Krishna. And therefore, right here, it's very clear, Maitreya is addressed as Bhagwan because he assumed that quality of Satchidananda. So there is the actual answer as well, further explained why it is completely acceptable to address pure devotees as Bhagwan. Haribol.
Is there anyone who wants to comment further, or we can move on to the next text? And if somebody would like to read, please go for it.
I had a comment regarding Bhagavan. One time, someone had gone to India and they came back with a comment that in the West, or at least in America, someone who's the superintendent of a building, like the janitor, will have keys to all the doors. And sometimes you'll see him walking around with a big keychain. And this person had gone to India, and they said that in India, it's more understood that if you have a lot of keys, it means that you are the owner of a lot of properties. So if someone goes there with a big chain of keys, they'll go, oh, Bhagavan.
Well, Bhagavan means the possessor of opulences, right?
Yes.
So there's Bhagavan with big B and little Bhagavan, Bhagavan with little b. Gurda says Bhagavan Shri Janitor. And Shara or Doug says the possessor of keys. And Ananta Shesha Prabhu, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be letting Surabhi Kunj do this.
Oh, should I read it?
Oh,
Okay.
please.
Ananta Shesh Prabhu said, I heard from a recent lecture from an ISKCON scholar that the easiest way to find out if anyone who claims to be an avatar is to see if the person makes a shadow. Avatars don't make shadows.
Really? Is it that easy? What if someone's the hidden avatar, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would never accept the claim, he would never accept, being called Bhagavan, but we know who he is, but it seems that if learned people know this, then it would have been described as such. So I'm very curious about that, if Mahaprabhu did not leave a shadow. But I guess, he's also not an avatar, he's Krishna himself. So now I'm confusing myself. Like, did Krishna leave a shadow?
That's a little hard to, I believe it, but it's a little hard to believe coming from an ISKCON scholar to say something like that.
Well, you're saying it's hard to believe because it doesn't seem to be true, or okay, Vishnu Tattvas don't make shadows.
It seems like a point of trivia.
Yeah, I don't know. My understanding is that we're supposed to understand who is who by knowing Shastra and by hearing from them. And, if yeah, I mean, that trivia, it seems to be a good word for it, because I mean, not making a shadow isn't a trivial thing, but it doesn't seem to be like the real, I don't know, it strikes me as odd, but I'm not likely to see somebody without a shadow regardless, so okay, so Ananta Shesha Prabhu comments further, in the age of so many God people in India. So, well, but the God person could say, yes, but I'm manifesting a shadow so I can be like the rest of you, if you, even if you don't make a shadow, if you want to, you can manifest a shadow.
Praveen Krishna has a comment. He's quoting Prabhupada. So here is incarnation of God, Rishabhadev. Now there are so many rascal incarnation. Is it possible to pass stool and make it Surabi? Is it possible? So you can ask these rascal incarnation that pass your stool here. Let us see first of all. Then we shall accept you. Practical. We are fools and rascals. We want practical test. So Shastra Chakshusha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, through the eyes of Shastra. So, yeah, the stool test seems to be more reliable than if somebody has a shadow or not, because they can say, yeah, I'm manifesting a shadow. I guess you can ask them to not manifest a shadow, but they won't do it.
For any seeker, a flimsy test like that would not be adequate. Somebody could manage by some trick, but the real test of a pure devotee, or a real test of a is so much more than that.
Mhm. And we get our knowledge in parampara, so we accept what Prabhupada has told us, and what our immediate predecessor acharyas have told us, and it's like if somebody else shows up and claims to be an avatar, we don't even need a test because we already know better.
Kendra Prabhu said, typically Srila Prabhupada would cite ability to show universal form and shastric documentation as criteria.
People have, Prabhupada has written that the people of Kali Yuga are easily fooled, cheaters and cheated, and if we're actually seeking the truth, we're not going to settle for some imitation or some tricks. Those are my words, not Prabhupada's, but hopefully the idea is the same.
Yeah. Sometimes, Prabhupada has often, emphasized that the real truth is received through hearing. You can see all sorts of things, but your vision may be faulty. You may be tricked, but when you hear from a bona fide source with guidance, then when you internalize that and you live according to the instructions, then it's very hard to be tricked, because you've received the truth and that lives in you. And if you're honest, then there's no question of being tricked. But when we depend on our other senses, then it seems like there's an easier, a greater likelihood of being tricked, because the other senses. We want to enjoy sense gratification through those other senses. So whatever pleases us or, appeals to us is going to grab our attention, and it's easy to get scammed.
Somebody want to read?
There's
Praveen?
more comments. Oh, Saraswati Mataji said, nowadays, avatars elected by popular vote.
Mhm.
And Praveen Krishna writes, Vishaka Devi. In Hyderabad, we stayed at the lavish estate of Mr. Analal Pitti, a life member. On a walk one morning around the expansive grounds, Prabhupada imitated Guru Maharaj Ji, a charismatic boy who claimed to be God. Someone challenged, if you're God, then show us your universal form like you showed it to Arjuna. I have already shown you, but you did not have the eyes to see it. You need divine eyes to see it. When I see you're qualified, I'll give you divine eyes. Prabhupada said, if you're God, why interested in women? Another person said, this is my pastime. You cannot understand it. It is inconceivable to you. If you're God, why do you get sick and have to see a doctor? That is my mercy on the doctor. I want to give him an opportunity to make advancement by rendering service to me. One after another, all arguments were quashed until Yadubar said, if you're God, why did some disenchanted follower throw a pie in your face? That incident had been reported in the newspaper headlines the day before. Yes, Prabhupada said, this is defeat for Guru Maharaj Ji. In all God's pastimes, you will never find him humiliated. It had never occurred to me that God had never been and would never be humiliated. Of course, why would the controller of all beings and the giver of all grace allow himself to be disgraced? I don't like to be humiliated, and neither does God. I can't always stop it from happening, but he certainly can. God is a person with unlimited potencies. It was mind expanding.
That was a good argument. I was just thinking that no, but whether or not the person actually feels it humiliated, it appears humiliating to others who see, and people feel sorry for you or feel glad that you've been defeated. So why would you expose yourself to that? Why would you risk people feeling pity or gloating over God being humiliated? And not only that, it shows a lack of, you're supposed to be omniscient. So how come you didn't see the pie thrower coming up at you? A person who's more situationally aware, they'll notice somebody about to attack them and they'll duck, and then that makes the person throwing the pie look like a fool. I think somebody tried to throw a shoe at George Bush once, and he ducked in time, so even he wasn't humiliated. Compared to Guru Maharaj.
But I don't think. I mean, I'm sure I'm very imperfect and maybe off by saying this, but I don't think it's about whether somebody has a pie thrown and it hits their face or not, but how they react. It's how they react. I can't imagine how somebody would react to that, but if someone reacts to that or some incredible embarrassing thing, but in a saintly way or in a exemplary manner, Prabhupada would go to different programs and different persons in the audience would yell things at him, and his reaction, or what was that? One time somebody said, to Prabhupada, he said, are you ISKCON? Like, are you, it's like he was saying, are you Krishna? Are you ISKCON? And Prabhupada said very humbly, no, I'm a member of ISKCON. So, someone may not, that may not be controllable, the something happening, but how we react, that's extremely important, and for someone with godly qualities to show that result.
I see what you're saying. I think there's a difference though between being challenged and being made to look foolish. I don't think, anybody can not look foolish with a pie in their face, but being asked if you're God or why are you sitting above everyone else, those are challenges, and
Yeah, I'm new to the pie in the face argument, I'll have to admit.
yeah, I'd read it before, but I forgot about it. But it seems like, it clearly means one has gotten the better of you by throwing a pie in your face, because at the very least they catch you unawares. Yeah, you're right. If a saintly person responds to that with dignity and maybe they'll just laugh or something like that, but the fact remains you were still gotten the better of by somebody else in an inglorious way. Whereas Prabhupada, people would challenge him, but he knew how to turn it around, and they would either become pacified or they'd look foolish themselves for trying to challenge them because they didn't know what they were talking about,
Very much so. Jai Maharaj.
Jai Maharaj.
I think somebody posted something in the chat. Saraswati Mata says, Shishupal tried to humiliate and insult Krishna until Krishna cut off his head with Sudarshan chakra. So that's how God reacts to being at any mere attempt to humiliate him. He demonstrates his power in that way, in an amazing, transcendental way.
But it was 100 times that Shishupal was allowed to insult him, right?
Yes, but at some point, Krishna chose that he chose to end it before his dear devotees stepped forward and took on Shishupal by themselves. He decided to end it.
I just wanted to say something, maybe I'm wrong, but Saraswati Mataji's comment about humiliate and insult Krishna, again, I think there's a difference between someone insulting you and being humiliated, because Krishna never appears foolish or never appears defeated or minimized. But yes, people can insult him, and all it does is it makes them look worse. So yeah, you said he tried to humiliate, but yeah, he wasn't successful in it. But I just wanted to, in my opinion, stress that distinction between insulting someone and someone being humiliated. I think you can insult someone without humiliating them, because it's just not possible considering who they are. But you can insult someone and it will just reflect badly on the person doing the insulting.
Praveen has a comment, or Kendra says, Krishna, quote, cut him off, unquote. And Praveen says, Krishna allowed Shishupal because he had given a vow to Shishupal's mother.
I'm wondering, did everyone know about that vow? Because I could just imagine people checking off the number of times Shishupal insulted him, and they were just like, running a countdown, waiting for the final insult. And it was spectacular. Shara, Prabhu, would you like to read text 5?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Text 5. Maitreya uvacha pitari prashtite ranyam matupriya chikirshaya tasmin bindu sare vatsid bhagavan kapila kila. Translation. Maitreya said, when Kardama left for the forest, Lord Kapila stayed on the strand of the Bindu Sarovara to please his mother Devahuti. Purport. In the absence of the father, it is the duty of the grown son to take charge of his mother and serve her to the best of his ability, so that she will not feel separation from her husband. And it is the duty of the husband to leave home as soon as there is a grown son to take charge of his wife and family affairs. That is the Vedic system of household life. One should not remain continually implicated in household affairs up to the time of death. He must leave. Family affairs and the wife may be taken charge of by a grown son.
I don't know the intricacies of ISKCON policy for awarding sannyas, but I was just thinking about how Mahaprabhu, his mother did not have another son to look out for her. When he took sannyasa, he took it anyways. And I was also thinking there's devotee lady who, to my knowledge, has never been married, or she was once married and is no longer, but she doesn't have any children. And yet there's a younger devotee who she preached to when he was even younger, and he has sort of adopted her as his mother. So Krishna is always looking out for his devotees, and especially somebody who is his regular or enthusiastic to preach as she was. Somehow Krishna sent her a grown-up son to look out for her in her old age.
One part of it that struck me is that Prabhupada so much emphasized that we should all become sannyasis internally in our thoughts and behavior. He, of course, Prabhupada made sannyasis for preaching, and we have one great sannyasi in our presence whom he made for preaching. But his emphasis seemed to be that we all become sannyasis in terms of our progress in Krishna consciousness, our progressive renunciation, progressive knowledge, progressive attachment to Krishna's lotus feet. In that way, anyone can, with the right association and the right desire, anyone can become a sannyasi internally, even grihasta, great grihastas in our movement, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur and so many others. That's all I wanted to say.
Shara, Prabhu, I apologize if I cut you off, but you didn't comment on the verse that you read, please.
Oh,
Oh, no, that's okay. I mean, I was just thinking of basically that it seems like what's being described here is Vanaprasth. That once a husband fulfills his duty as a grihasta, which is to raise devotee children, then he should leave so he doesn't get entangled in more material life. That's pretty much it, though. But I do see that Saraswati Mata has her hand raised.
Thank you. So we've studied the ideal life of Kardama Muni and Devahuti, and as they graduated from one ashram to the next. And I was having a conversation with some devotees of some of the experiences of married female devotees in the late 70s after the departure of Srila Prabhupada and during the times of the zonal guru. And an interesting theme that ran through was how a lot of, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but many of the women devotees that had gotten married had been were experiencing a lot of unhappiness because it was like alarm bells were always being rang for the married grihastas about a woman coming in the form of Maya, and to see her body as blood, mucus, and all of that, and all this the dangers of temptations and all of that. So in some cases, and cases that that the devotees yesterday that we were conversing, it was actually quite disrespectful, because if a brahmachari found that he couldn't follow the vow of celibacy and decided to get married, that wasn't the fault of the woman that he ended up marrying. So whatever resentments that he may have carried with him because of his inadequacies, he had no right whatsoever to then bring that at the doorstep of the woman he married. Because some of these women, they heard on a daily basis, oh, I wish I'd never gotten married. Or I know firsthand, I was friends with a wonderful young devotee. Of course, I was a young devotee myself, and she had fought tooth and nail with her family to try and get them to accept her decision to join the movement. They didn't agree, but anyway, she left home and she was in the Brahmacharini ashram just as I was. I wasn't in the ashram for too long, but we became such good friends, and she'd been in the ashram a lot longer than I had. She'd gotten married, although she was still living separately, and her husband was living in the Brahmachari ashram. But she would be so delighted and so excited to try and cook prasadam for her husband, who'd go out on the Sankirtan party, and she'd come when I started renting a place with the devotee. We had the kitchen, access to the kitchen. I would help her cook. She would be so excited, and we would go and wait for that Sankirtan van to come. So then she would be so happy to give this prasadam. She'd be saying, oh, he must be very hungry. And then when he saw his wife, he was like, he'd take the tiffin. It was like not even a smile, not even the respect that he would have extended to any other devotee. And you should see her face. And there were times she would just outright cry to me. She would be crying, sobbing on my shoulder, not knowing what to do or how to try and fix this. And it wasn't that the onus was on her to fix it. And it wasn't that she was looking for physical intimacy or any of that. She just wanted an acknowledgement from him that, she was trying to serve him to the best of her ability. And for her to be rejected time and time again in this manner, because for whatever concoction he had got in his mind, or however he had interpreted the Shastras, well, my wife is Maya personified. So, but that still didn't give him a right to treat her that way. And another interesting thing that came out was then some of these female wives, they were so distraught. So if some of them even became so depressed, they had to seek a counselor. in one conversation that was that came out with somebody who had gone to see a counselor who happened to be a Muslim woman after they'd related what had happened to them. But then they still tried to preach Krishna consciousness to the counselor, saying, well, these are our regulative principles. And the counselor looked at her and said, yes, I am a Muslim and I'm not a vegetarian or probably following a lot of these principles. But I can tell you one thing. I would never treat someone that way. For a husband to treat his wife that way, that is just as wrong as someone that was eating meat. So, this holier than thou attitude doesn't really fly with me. This is what the counselor had responded. But I'm just saying there's, maybe people need to read these Kadama Muni and Devahuti's life a lot more closely, rather than just getting something in their head of a woman is Maya personified. If I'm getting married, or my wife, she's a trap for me. I mean, don't get married if that's how you're thinking. Then why are you even getting married? It's not her fault if you can't follow the vow of celibacy. And the Haribol.
Maharaj says, lack of culture. Philosophy should be accompanied by culture.
Could you read the comment from Praveen Prabhu?
Culture means knowing how to deal with people.
Above that, Praveen says, just went up, one brahmachari's elder mother stayed in my temple. The son took very good care of her, daily serving her prasad and other needs. The temple also provided. She would wake early morning and attend various services. The temple was grateful to her for allowing her son there's no cookie cutter response. Yeah. But there are different moods a devotee can adopt. I think what you were describing, Saraswati Mata, was an extreme, unfortunately, with someone preparing, going through all the sacrifice of preparing a nice meal and then being not acknowledged. But who knows, the Sankirtan could have put that devotee in a different mood, or I'm not defending him, but some renounced idea, so that he didn't want to come back and be served by a woman or something. Who knows?
I could just imagine the brahmacharis giving that husband a very hard time. One, because of him interacting with a woman, even though he was married, and two, because he's getting something that the rest of them aren't getting. So, of course, brahmacharis, I think we all like nice prasadam. So they see one person getting prasadam and they're not getting it, and they're gonna give him a hard time out of, it's. Oh, Maharaj says, let's not imagine. Okay.
Saraswati Mata says, this devotee friend returned to her parents' house due to her husband's behavior. Well, that's definitely a defeat, but that, I'm sure, if she was a staunch devotee, that I'm sure, or I hope, that didn't enter Krishna consciousness. That would be a real tragedy. Mataji, it might be time for kirtan.
Yes. Vijay Krishna Prabhu is in the room. I don't know if he's free to lead kirtan. If not, Krishna Kontaya Prabhu. Oh, he says just hearing. Krishna Kontaya Prabhu, could you please lead kirtan?
Yes. Am I being heard? Okay.
You sound fine.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupad Brahmasa Parivrajakacharya Astottara Satashi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Brahmasa Parivrajakacharya Astottara Satashi Srimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Iskam Panuchaya, Savior of the world, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Sri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Sri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Sri Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Brihad Madanga Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories, some of the devotees, all glories, some of the devotees, all glories, some of the devotees. Jai Sri Guru and Guranga. Jai Prabhupada.
Jai, Jai, Jai. Thank you so much, Krishna Kante Prabhu. Thank you, Maharaj, for joining us tonight. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Srimad
Thank you,
Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Prabhupada. Jai Jayadvaita Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev.
Hi, Maharaj. Nice to see you. Where are you? Oh, maybe you can't speak.
Hare Krishna.
London.
London.
London, flying to Ghana.
Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai,
Jayadvaita Maharaj and friends Ki Jai.
Jai.
Oh, Premanande.
Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Oh, Maharaj said in the chat. Hare Krishna. See you all tomorrow for Caitanya-caritamrta class.